Express Series, English for Accounting, by Evan Frendo and Sean Mahoney. Unit 4, Exercise 1.
Claude Bernot?
Hi, Claude. It's Janet. You wanted to chat?
Hi, Janet. Great, you got my message. Thanks for getting back to me so quickly.
You're welcome. How can I help?
Well, it's about your preliminary report. There are a couple of things I think we need to discuss.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I have it in front of me.
Hang on, I'll just find my notes. Okay. The first point is on page 11, third paragraph. What do you mean exactly?
Okay, let's have a look. Oh, yes. Capitalisation of costs in your factories. We think that these costs should be expenses in the P&L.
But, no, sorry, I'm afraid I disagree. They were necessary for the upgrade of our plant. Surely you agree that we have to keep up with the competition?
Yes, of course. But lots of the items we tested are clearly normal repair and maintenance expenses. You can't really justify including such costs under machine upgrades.
I see it differently. Our machines have been developed to produce a wider variety of products, to improve the running efficiency of the equipment, to keep us in business. This was a sizable investment on our part. The figure we're talking about shows the commitment we've made to the future. I mean, we're going to be getting benefits from these upgrades for years. Our balance sheet should show this.
I'm sorry. These figures are too material for us to ignore. There are some expenses which...
Companies do this all the time, and I might add, their auditors accept it. I suggest you consider this again. I'm sure you'll find it's reasonable when you think about how important these investments were to this company.
All right, we'll look at these costs again. Let's move on to the next point.
Unit 4, Exercise 6. Part 1.
Have you seen the latest?
What's that, about Megacorp plc?
Yeah, and it's not the only one. Every week there's a new scandal. It's going to change how we do our job.
How? Our role is only to give an opinion based on estimates. We can't review every little thing in detail.
Oh, come on. Investors expect financial information to be correct, and I think it's fair enough. If they find out that, I don't know, that assets have been overstated by 50%, then they're going to be annoyed. I would be too.
Part 2.
We don't overstate anything.
But we're expected to find these things. That's what we're paid to do.
Hang on a minute. Our job is to review the information provided to us by the management of a company. We have to assume that they're being honest. We're not police officers.
But...
Let me finish. Look, there are legal mechanisms to deal with people who commit fraud. The auditing profession has its own regulations, and investors trust this. It's tried and tested.
All I'm saying is that investors have a right to rely on the financial information they read, and we're paid to check exactly that. Self-regulation may not be enough, and the trend is...
I agree that it's a bit strange that we're paid by the same people who we audit, but it's always been this way, and I don't see how that can be changed. Do you?
Unit 5, Exercise 1.
I'm sorry, but the external accounts don't help me much. Doesn't matter if they're in English or Chinese. I need information from you, which will help me run this department.
What exactly would you like?
Well, for example, I need something which tells me about the profit we make on our customers, with some sort of breakdown based on the size of the company. I want to compare the money we make to the size of the customer.
Sure, we can do that. And how about the costs per customer?
Exactly. How much we spend on each customer compared to the size of their orders.
That should be possible.
Great. Also, the profit made per employee. I would like to know where we are profitable and with which employees we make our money.
You realise that this is going to be a lot of work for my department.
Yes, I know, but it's very important for me. Can I also have a complete breakdown of our overhead expenses and the allocation of them to each of the products that we sell?
OK. How would you like all this information to be presented?
In plain English, please, so that even I can understand it.
Unit 5, Exercise 7.
So, we've agreed that Sally's team will produce those figures by the end of the month. Got that?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. I'd like to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the budget for the upcoming year. Peter, would you please give a short overview of your research into the market and your conclusions?
Sure. As you all know, my department has been extensively researching the market and the economic conditions we'll be facing in the short term. It's quite clear that events of recent years have unsettled the market greatly. Both investors and consumers are convinced that it won't get better, probably for a long time. Investors are looking for solid companies, and consumers don't just throw their cash around like they used to. We think that the situation will remain like it is in the middle term. This is a time for consolidation, not expansion.
Simon, what does R&D think about this?
It's a pretty negative outlook. We've been working really hard to come up with some great ideas. And maybe now's the time to launch some of our new products.
And our investment programme has been ready to go for months. We can't just wait and hope that things get better. Our strategy has always been to lead the market, not sit back and cruise along.
Peter?
Ideas and investments don't mean cash in the bank. Consumers simply don't have the confidence to spend their money on fancy new products. And as for expansion, I think the good old days are long gone. We should be cutting back.
Sally, how do you feel about all this?
We're talking about budgets for the upcoming year. Everybody's forecasts seem to indicate hard times ahead, and we don't even have the money to spend. How are we going to service more debt or raise more cash in the capital markets?
So, despite our great ideas and investment plans, it seems the reality is that our budgets for this year will have to be tight.
Ideas and investments don't mean cash in the bank. Consumers simply don't have the confidence to spend their money on fancy new products. And as for expansion, I think the good old days are long gone. We should be cutting back.
Sally, how do you feel about all this?
We're talking about budgets for the upcoming year. Everybody's forecasts seem to indicate hard times ahead, and we don't even have the money to spend. How are we going to service more debt or raise more cash in the capital markets?
So, despite our great ideas and investment plans, it seems the reality is that our budgets for this year will have to be tight.
Unit 6, Exercise 1.
So, can we agree at least that it will be most cost-effective to invest in an existing business? That way we will be able to utilise the local knowledge of the personnel currently running the business.
Yeah, I think so. The question is how exactly? Do we buy the company or only the assets? There's a lot to think about. For instance, the due diligence process, although that won't affect the mechanics of our acquisition. What will we have to consider, Alan? You're the international lawyer.
Lots of things. Takeover rules, European Union regulation on competition, and the accounting legislation. Dana, can you tell us something about that?
Actually, the accounting regulations aren't such a big issue. More important will be the effect of our acquisition on our balance sheet. The goodwill component is huge, and we have to be aware of the impact this is going to have. That'll be an interesting discussion with the auditors.
Unit 6, Exercise 4.
If we're thinking about raising capital in overseas markets, the reporting requirements of those markets are obviously important. I've summarised some of the major points on this slide. Let's go through them briefly.
1.
It may be possible to measure all of these at their fair value, which would allow the recognition of unrealised gains.
2.
This may have been developed completely separately from the accounting systems and may provide considerable opportunities for taxation planning.
3.
Typical of these is the profit and loss account.
4.
This can be acquired or self-generated. Of course, it may have to be recognised as an asset if certain criteria are met.
5.
Here, we're talking about things which we don't actually own. They go back to their owners after a certain amount of time. They require different disclosure in the balance sheet, and the GAAP of different countries can require different classification, normally finance or operating.
6.
The methods used to measure this can vary considerably. The normal ones are FIFO, which means first in, first out, LIFO, last in, first out, or average cost, which is somewhere between the two. all give a different value for what we hold.
Unit 6, Exercise 6, Part 1.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Catherine Smithson. I'd like to thank you first of all for giving me the opportunity to come here today and talk to you about the international issues facing enterprises with cross-border interests. Although I am not an accountant, I hope to give you some information which will help you in your dealings abroad. If you don't mind, I would prefer to answer any questions you may have at the end. There'll be 3 parts to my presentation. I'll start with a short description of the general issues faced by managers today. Then we'll look at some of the issues in more detail using some of the data I have collected. Finally, we'll look at how you can approach these problems and create successful international teams. There'll be a comprehensive handout at the end, so there's no need to take notes unless you really want to.
Part 2.
So, what can we conclude from all this? We all know that globalization has been a buzzword for many years now. All of us have been involved in or seen companies expand across borders, and we have seen some mergers collapse. I think that my research has shown that one of the main reasons for such collapses is that management has ignored the intercultural factors facing the members of teams working in an intercultural environment. I hope my presentation has made you aware of some of the factors which affect the ability of people from different cultures to work together. I will now be happy to take any questions from the floor and perhaps even discuss some of these issues further. Yes, the gentleman on the right.